Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, and wherever in the world you may be. My name is Matt Wynn, your podcast host and resident secure identities nerd. Welcome back to HID Connects. Now, last season, we had an episode dedicated to biometrics, and we ended with the promise that we would revisit this ever-growing topic in a future episode. Well, folks, you're in luck because I am not only a man of my word, but the future is now. So in today's episode, we're going to talk more about biometrics, including a variety of types, sentiments, and trends in the space. So to help us dig deeper into the biometric universe, I'm excited to be joined by two expert guests. First, joining me in the studio is Vito Fabbrizio, Managing Director of Biometrics at HID, and also beaming in virtually is Rogier Verwer, Head of Security Entrance Control and Revolving Doors at ASSA ABLOY. So let's start with introductions, shall we? Vito, thanks for traveling all this way to be with us. Introduce yourself to our guests and tell us a little bit about what you do at HID.
Yeah, thanks first of all the invitation to the webcast. Yes, I'm Managing Director for the Biometric Business Unit as part of Extended Access Technologies in HID, and my experience with biometric goes back to the mid-90s, so almost 30 years. And I've worked in biometrics both at the commercial level, consumer electronics, as well as government and more traditional passport, criminal justice kind of biometrics.
Very good. Lots of experience to draw from.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us. Sure. Again, thanks for beaming in. I believe you're in Prague right now, so a little bit later in the day for you. So thanks for staying up for us. But same for you. Would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit what you do at ASSA ABLOY.
Yeah, thanks for having me in. I'm Rogier Verwer. I'm Dutch, and I'm working for the ASSA ABLOY Entrance Systems division. And I'm responsible for security entrance control and revolving doors, which means that we actually are building up a new product unit, which is mostly focusing on security entrance control. And that's also the connection that we have with HID. And we started our collaboration actually a couple of years back, and that was also based on facial recognition and also the fingerprint readers. So that is where my journey starts with facial recognition, not so much and biometrics, not so much experience as Vito has, but together we have quite some number of experience.
Excellent. Well, glad that your journey brought us to the podcast as well. So again, thank you both for joining. All right. So listeners, now that you know who our guests are, let's get to it. So again, today's episode is all about biometrics. And the burning question for today is biometrics in security. What is the potential really? So Vito, let's start with you. You mentioned that you've been in the space for quite some time now. So for those who may be newer to this topic, give us a rundown of what biometric technology is, and how have you seen that definition change over the years?
Yeah. So biometrics is something that can identify you as who you are, not by other means, something something you are, remember, but something you are personally. And so biometrics are some measurement of your body that are, used with mathematical processing to verify your identity. The most traditional of biometric, of course, because there's a lot of history, is fingerprint. Fingerprint goes back to the Egyptian or the ancient time where people were signing document with their fingerprint. And that was a form of identification so that you can, recognize that it was me that was signing this document. And has remained like that for centuries until really at the end of the 19th century. In the criminal justice, they started to develop technology to identify, a crime scene and retrieve information about the crime scene, which is the fingerprint that led to the recognition of the identity of the criminal. And that's really evolved, since the late 19th century to what is today our criminal system justice. Only in recent years, other form of biometric has evolved. I think, from the 50s and the 60s, where people started to measure other type of biometric modality, and that's face recognition, handprint, iris recognition, voice recognition. And over the years, all these modalities have evolved and improved in terms of performance and use in different type of use cases depending on the usability, cost of deploying the solution, etc. And so you can see that, the main biometric modality for centuries has been fingerprint, but then there has been a rapid acceleration in the last 10 years, especially with key milestone like the adoption of biometric in consumer electronics. Nowadays everybody turns on the phone either with a fingerprint or with the face recognition, and that has really accelerated the growth of biometric overall. And today there are millions and millions of phones equipped with biometric capability. There is hundreds of thousands of access control system, and of course we still remain with the original criminal justice and national ID kind of system. They're still based on traditional biometric modalities.
Fascinating. I didn't realize that it went back centuries to the Egyptians.
Oh, yeah.
You think about scanning a fingerprint, not the idea of using it to sign documents. That's really good context. Over to you. What are your thoughts, and from your perspective and your experience, how have you seen biometric technology evolve, change over the years? What do you see?
Yeah, of course, if you look back in the use cases of biometrics, then all the things that Vito is mentioning, I think that you all have used it once. But if you now look to the current situation with biometrics, I think that new technology is coming in, which you also see evolving in more the travel and travel business. So more the airports, where you really see this evolving and also taking in different place than in the past. So it's really also about user experience. So it is really also evolving into more our current way of living, and is really trying to adapt to our normal way of using also our devices. Just take your cell phone, for example. The evolvement, it will evolve over time, and also in the whole user journey and user experience that we will face in the future. Biometrics will be part of that.
Very good. Thank you. So we talked about use cases just a bit, right? And we discussed where biometrics can be leveraged for security purposes, and that's a really important one. What are some use cases that expand out biometrics for other types of interactions and other types of authentication? So where do you see some of the primary use cases living in biometrics in today's world? Vito, I'll start with you.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you need a user verification or user identification, you see a good fit for biometrics. And the key aspect of biometrics really are security and convenience. Okay, the security, because the measurement of your body and the fingerprint, the face are very strong identifier, and the technology today in terms of both the capture capability as well as the algorithm, and especially with the introduction of AI, has really improved the overall performance of the biometrics. So from a security point of view, they've been growing significantly in security. But at the same time, it provides a great convenience to the user, because you don't really need to carry anything or remember anything. Then, in order to access whatever you need to access, to open a door, to open your bank account, or to view or approve a transaction, or etc. And so these are the two fundamental aspects of the biometric technology: security and convenience, and how they go together. Then in terms of how you can apply them, really is everywhere you see the need of an identification. Of course, there is going to be some use cases where the importance of security is paramount. and is either for accessing certain information or certain location. We see, for example, the use of biometric in healthcare when it comes to donor of specific DNA or fertility information that needs to be linked to the person strongly, and therefore they really suggest the use of biometric versus other form of identification. But the convenience aspect bring in all other use cases that can be used for access control. You see the consumer electronics capability of biometrics on the phone to open phone and to allow transaction, up to the more interesting use cases that revolve around banking, education. We had a lot of experience, for example, at some point in Africa with the student registration for exam, because there were a lot of cheating, and I will pay my friend to go in and do the exam for me, and then I'll get the certificate from the school. And so in a lot of places where there is a tendency of bending the rules, that's where biometrics can help a lot, because even for simple check like student coming in for an exam, or people going in for getting some service in healthcare with the cover of insurance, when one person in the family has insurance, and then the whole cousin, nephew, and they all go in with the same insurance card, and they get services for healthcare, for example.
Very good use cases. And had I known that I could pay someone to take my exams in university, I probably would have had a higher GPA ahead of that technology being available. So Roger, over to you, but more specific questions. So 2. 1, what are some of the use cases that you see more specific to facial recognition? Where does facial recognition make sense? And then secondly, Vito mentioned the balance of security and convenience. In the world of facial recognition, what's your take on that? Because maybe the balance is slightly different, or maybe it's not. What's your take on use cases for facial and that balance?
Yeah, of course. My focus is not as wide as Vito's focus, because HID is of course that's the foundation, and I'm part of the entrance systems division, which is more focused on the hardware, and where we implement and the facial recognition and all the technology of HID. So it's for us, it's a little bit from a different angle. But if you look to the use cases where we see the real benefit is, for example, in airports, and I touched on that already a little bit. But travel and transportation is really a market where this will evolve over time even more than it is already today. And this is also where the collaboration with HID is coming from the entrance systems division. But besides that, also with education, as Vito was mentioning, within schools, I think there is also a market for us where we can use the facial recognition in combination with our doors and with our solutions that we provide from the entrance systems side. So there is. If you combine it with hardware, you can use it actually in many different markets. So the technology itself is really coming from HID, and if you combine it with other devices, the use cases are more or less endless, I would say.
Endless use cases. And then, Vito, go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, when other use cases, linked more to the government side are, of course, the more traditional one, as I mentioned, criminal justice. And, when you need to get a passport, you will have to provide fingerprint in many countries, etc. But we see also, and we are very active in a lot of government subsidies scheme, from the World Bank to the India HADAR program, where really biometric is helping provide financial support or food support more equally to the citizen of the country. These are countries that there is a lot of corruption, there is a lot of pocketing. I'll give you an example. In India, there is, a government subsidies for rice for the poor people. and they've been plagued by corruption and people hoarding rice and not distributing it, etc. And they implemented this biometric scheme, which is a unique situation in the world where people are receiving the subsidies and they are verifying with the fingerprint and other means of biometrics their identity, so that the rice really get distributed to everyone that is entitled to. And so these are also key programs, especially in emerging country and third world, that are really helping the population and equality in these countries.
Very good. Biometrics for the good. I like that.
Yes.
One thing that always comes up, especially relates to facial, in other biometric modalities as well, but I think with facial being on the rise and it being a newer engagement for a lot of everyday people, whether they're in an airport like me going through a clear station, but that's the idea of privacy. Where does the biometric data live? So, Rogier, what are your thoughts on the intersection of security, convenience, and privacy? And what would you share with listeners as it relates to where and how biometric data is stored?
Yeah, that's always a topic that is popping up when you talk about when you're talking about biometrics. How do we secure it, and where do we store it? And normally that's done by the government. For example, if you talk about the airports, then the connection is made with from the passports with the government where it is stored. So it actually the technology is like that you don't store that kind of information directly somewhere. So it's always a connection with the government. And of course, if you go to schools of other private buildings or private companies, then it's more a local matter and a matter of how do you want to organize it as a company itself, like what we are doing within entrance systems.
Vito, over to you. What are your thoughts on privacy in this space, and how do we assuage any concerns that users may have?
Yeah, no, privacy is a very, very interesting topic, and it's also interesting to see the evolution of privacy. When I started, working on biometrics more than 30 years ago, it was clear that the legislative body they were not prepared for the technology, like it happens many instances where the technology is always 1 or 2 or 3 steps ahead of the legislative body. But I think with the work that the European Union has done in GDPR and some of the similar legislation that has been derived from that one in different countries, they actually, in my opinion, helped the growth of biometric rather than the opposite, simply because they provide a very clear framework on how to operate. And they provided also some protection for the biometric vendor and the biometric implementer in terms of following or pushing best practices when it comes to, as Rogier said, the security of the data and the handling of the data, and above all, the consent of the individual about using biometrics. So you are aware that your biometric has been taken, is being used. You have the right to, sign up for the service, whatever the service is, but also the right to be deleted. And so, and ultimately, GDPR and similar legislative privacy ruling has been really helping, in my opinion, the biometric adoption or frame it in the right way.
Very good. And as it relates to biometric adoption, what do you see on the horizon for the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you think that's going to go? Do you see increase adoption, increase in different modalities and use cases? Where do you see biometrics going in terms of adoption in the future?
I think that will dominate a lot of markets in the future. As already said, it's really convenient to have this kind of devices and this kind of technology in your private life as well as in your professional life. it increase your convenience, user experience, as already said as well. So I really believe that, and also the technology goes quite fast. If you look where we were 5 years and where we are today, it's a completely different world. So I really believe that this is just the starting of this journey.
And Roger, I'm going to stick with you on that follow-up question. Do you see with increased biometric adoption anything that may get left behind, right? So are there any types of interactions that we have, whether it's an access control or any other touch points we have, that will completely change? So, for example, you can use a mobile credential to check into your hotel. You no longer have to go to the front desk of the hotel to check in. When it comes to biometrics, do you see it replacing anything that we're used to interacting with normally?
Yeah, that's a good question. Of course, I can imagine that this card will be replaced by some biometrics, and especially if it is following also the GDPR, because that's again in something what is extremely important, because it's something what's personal, so you don't want to have that out there without any safety concerns around that. So but I'm pretty sure that will be solved over time as well. And I think that because you also see it already with fingerprints, that's already almost taken over by facial recognition. So it will evolve, and what will be the next step, I don't know, but I believe that there will be a next step in there as well. And facial recognition is one of the steps, but there will be more coming, much more than that. I'm pretty sure about that.
Very good. And Vito, back to the question on adoption. Where do you see adoption really taking strength over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so first of all, the market, for example, some of the traditional market where we are in access control, they already have a portion of the market which has been taken over by biometrics. I mean, is existing market. Either different biometric modalities, but there is today, for example, an access control market with biometrics that has replaced traditional card. However, what I believe in this particular market is going to happen is that there is going to be an adoption which is going to be driven by specific privacy law, and therefore is going to transform the role of the mobile credential or the card in order to provide the full control of the biometric to the individual, and is going to strengthen the security of certain use cases, but is going to see the marriage between the two technologies to provide much more stronger capability for certain use cases. So I don't think that biometric is going to be out there to replace some of the traditional mechanism. Where it happens already happened. But what I see in the future is that there will be more synergies between different technologies like mobile credential or card and biometric to provide innovative user experience, new capability, and much more higher security in certain use cases.
Very nice. And continuing to look into the future, Rogier, what's exciting you in the space? Is there anything that you think, technologically speaking, is just really piquing your interest and you want to learn more about? What do you see as exciting developments in the biometrics technology space right now?
I think it's more the combination of the different technology that already exists, and how can you combine that to make it and integrate it in our devices that we produce, and how can we add value to our customers, and especially also again with the user experience. I think that is really key in this whole development for us, but also that's also where I get excited, because if we can make our increase the efficiency for our customers and the users of the products, I think that is really why we are trying to add value. And for me, technology is this kind of technology is new in that sense for entrance systems, not for the world, of course, but the combination can make the difference also for ASSA ABLOY. So that is what I really get excited for. About. Yeah.
And
Exciting
we are
indeed,
equally excited to work with ASSA ABLOY on this one, because we see definitely the value of providing the technology and some of the capability, and then really offering to our customer together a more complete solution overall. That has been really the goal since the beginning of trying to work much closely with ASSA ABLOY.
Exciting. Very good stuff. So the nature of today's episode and the burning question is around what's the potential of biometrics. And I don't know if we fully hit on that. We've talked about increasing adoption, new technologies, what's on the horizon, security, convenience, and everything in between. But really hitting it home, and Vito, I'll start with you. What do you see as the potential of biometrics and security?
To me, there is a very good potential. I mean, there is the potential to grow and establish, of course, HID as a key player. We have really started as a component provider. I mean, HID has entered the biometric space by acquisition, not by organic growth, meaning that they developed the technology organically. And the acquisition, they were primarily more hardware vendor provider. And that's how we started. But the direction we are going and the growth we see is really towards solution enablement and solution. And the collaboration with ASSA ABLOY is one example of us trying to move more towards solution. As a result, the market and the playground we're going to play is going to be much bigger, and is going to provide much bigger potential. The hardware, is becoming more a commodity. The hardware we invented 30 years ago, everybody can develop today. You have lost some of the patent protection, but also the technology has evolved so that, many countries can, develop the technology on their own. When it comes to solution, it's much more complicated, and that's where we see our growth and our potential to grow the market. And the other key aspect is not to be, only innovating or investing in one particular modality, but to be what we call multimodal, which means, and 2 years ago we started to add facial recognition and invest in facial recognition, but also other form of biometric modality, because ultimately what we would like to offer is flexibility to our customer. Every customer has, certain canvas they need to work with. A canvas that has to do with user experience, that has to do with cost of the solution, cost of ownership, specific attitude towards a certain biometric modality. And that's what we want to do. We want to be able to have the flexibility to our customer and help them and be a trusted advisor to really direct them towards the best solution for their use case, because there is no one biometric solution that works for everybody.
Right. Tailored value is really, really important there. Yeah. Well said. Rogier, over to you. Same question. What do you see as the potential of biometrics and security?
Yeah, of course, it's a little bit different in that sense that we see it from a different perspective. But I can completely follow the words of Vito, because for us it's more or less in the same. So it's we want to be also a solution provider, and the biometrics and what HID can provide to us will increase also our reach and our market, and we can do things that our competitors are not able to do because of the fact that we combine technology. And creating a solution sounds simple, but there are quite some things that we need to consider to create the solution to make sure that the technology really fits well together. And that's exactly where our competitors are struggling, and where we can add the value towards the market. Including also the next step is, of course, we also need to maintain the technology, and we are also able to do that with our services that we can offer. So, it's a huge space that we are foresee that where we can add value, and of course we are focusing today on certain markets, which is more related to the travel the travel market and also offices, the office space, education, that kind of markets. That's where we're really focusing on today, as we see there the real use case today. But where that will be in the future, I believe that it is much wider and much bigger than we foresee today. It will evolve for sure.
Nice. Yeah. As mentioned earlier, the use cases are endless and the possibilities sound endless as well when it comes to biometrics. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. Between everything we discussed around legislation, privacy, technology, adoption, what the future holds, probably another episode on this topic in future seasons. So we'll invite you back, and really appreciate you both coming. So thank you both for your expertise and your knowledge.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And as always, folks, even bigger thank you to you, our listeners, for hearing us out on this episode. We truly, truly enjoy creating this podcast and hope that you equally enjoy listening. Of course, we'll be back very soon with another episode covering yet another topic shaping the security and identity industry. So on that note, be the first to know when new episodes are published, and do that just by subscribing to HID Connects. Doing so will ensure that you stay connected to us and you can subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And while you're there, be sure to rate and review this podcast. You can also subscribe and watch the video versions of this on our YouTube channel, and check us out on our social profiles. And in the spirit of connection, that's what it's all about. Please send me your questions and your topic ideas for future episodes. All you have to do is drop me a line at media@hidglobal.com. So friends, until next time, thanks again for listening. May your identities forever be secure.